Joining me right now at Kazeem, a.k.a. Kaz. What's up, Kaz? You're on the Fan in New York. What's up, bro?
Keith, my brother, what's going on, man? I was losing myself a little bit over that triumph, that instrumental before. So I was like, all right, keep going. He was on beat and everything. I was like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, once
This
in
is
a
good
while.
juju, man.
Once in a while, I kick a freestyle on the Fan. I don't think anybody ever has done that before me. I'm due for some bars actually, but man, we got to go back. We got to take people back in time because I'm sure people don't know this. I actually went back and just looked at our DMs on Twitter.
Wow.
2017, I'm haggling, I'm hassling, I'm basically begging you, man. Like, what's up, Kaz? We met a couple times on the set of Uncommon Sense. You know, I was doing social media for MTV, MTV2. Like, you were working at Bleacher Report, and man, I was just trying to get on. I was I was just like leaving MTV and looking for opportunities. And you know what's funny, man? Now I have so many people that have reached out to me over the years looking for opportunities. And there's so many people I tell them, like, I can't help you. Like, I wish I had something for you. I couldn't help you. And back then, I know you couldn't help me, but you still responded to some messages. You followed me. We kind of followed each other's careers, and here we are now.
Yeah, bro. I've always been a fan of your stuff, and even going back to the Uncommon Sense days, right? I look back and just think of the crew of people that we were working with, right? It was like me, Charlemagne, Jesus and Mero, Andrew Schultz.
Yep.
My God, just the who's who, Kid Fury, you know what I mean? Crystals, like a bunch of incredible, talented TV podcast people now. And, you know, seeing the growth that you've been through, especially on WFAN, it just, you know, social media makes the world a little bit smaller than it is. So even though we hadn't really been able to cross paths as much as I would have liked to, man, it's been really awesome seeing you climb on the Fan and seeing everything you bring to the culture, especially of sports talk radio in New York City. I know it's a beast out here, so you know it's dope seeing it, man. And you know, especially on this station, the one that everybody in New York City grew up on listening. You got that primetime hour, so it's everybody's proud of you, bro. So am I, man. So I really do. I'm appreciative. I'm appreciative of you bringing me on here, and we can catch up like old times, bro.
It's mutual, bro. When I text you today, it was all love, and I just said, I put two and two together. I'm like, yo, why haven't I had Kaz? Come on, yo. Back in the day, like Pete Davidson used to be on that show. Cardi B was on that show. Joe Budden was on that show. We all used to be in that little green room area, kind of just hanging out like, at 1515, where they used to shoot TRL back in like 2015, 2016. It's crazy to think that there was so many talented people in there that have gone on to do other great things, and we're all kind of, still crossing paths in New York. And, I've seen you on MSG. I'm in here watching MSG right now. I know you're proud of your Knicks. I know it's been a long time coming. It's funny because I was on the Fan talking about, if they go down to Philly and they beat the Sixers, it's going to be Knicks mania. And then I saw one of your tweets, and I think you said something along the lines like, if the Knicks beat Philly, I'm going to be irrational or something like that. How are you feeling about this run that the Knicks are on, stacking wins? I mean, I know they stumbled a little bit and there's been some injuries or whatever, but, like, they're really about to keep, like, if you look at their schedule, they're going to keep stacking wins, and they have a chance to just raise themselves in the Eastern Conference standings.
Man, I'm going to keep it all the way tall, man. I was a big R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly fan. It was hard seeing those two guys go, especially, when you draft. I'm saying like I drafted it, but, when your team drafts, players that you really like and you see them grow up, it's always tough to kind of see them go elsewhere. But like I said, man, that game against Philadelphia, I felt like it was going to be a real test for the New York Knicks. They were on the road. They had a couple wins in a row already. Joel Embiid was playing, he wasn't hurt or sitting out. So I called my shot. I said, listen, man, the Knicks look good. And if you remember the beginning of the season, they had a good record, but their record against, like, teams above 500 wasn't so hot. In fact, I think their first win over a playoff team or a team over 500 came on Christmas when they beat the Milwaukee Bucks. And that was sort of a big win at that time. But, who knew that was going to be the last time we saw RJ and Quickly and all those guys in Madison Square Garden. So fast forward to that game in Philly, and off the eye test after beating Minnesota, I like the way this Knicks team was built, especially with OG Anunoby hitting corner threes, sort of playing all types of defense from the 2 to the 5. And the Sixers are a team that, say what you want about them, say what you want about their playoff experience, they're going to be a team that you're going to have to go through if you want to beat anything in the Eastern Conference. So when the Knicks not only beat them, but stomped them out, I said, oh, hell yeah. Now, we're talking very heavy. So anybody who listens to me and anybody who saw these Knicks in the next several weeks and months, well, I guess it's months now since that game, they're doing everything that I hope that they could play, right? Like, it's not only enough to just win games. I would say they've really established a culture and identity that they've been trying to build for maybe like the past 2 or 3 years. And I feel like they said it and, they wanted to do it. And I think the Mitchell Robinson injury really was a hard reset for the Knicks because if you remember, once he went out, their defense really suffered. And the addition of Hartenstein and OG into the starting lineup really, got them back to playing Tom Thibodeau-type defense. So there's just a steadiness to this team, right? Like, there's just a steadiness to this Knicks team where even if it's a team like the Washington Wizards that you expect to beat, or you're going up against a Boston Celtics or a Sixers or Bucks team, you always feel like they're going to be well-equipped to at least make it a game, right? Like, you don't ever feel like they don't have a shot against anybody in the NBA, and that's all you kind of wanted. But now, it's time to get greedy. You got Jalen Brunson on an incredible contract. You got Julius Randle on an incredible contract, and they're both playing like all NBA All-Stars. That timeline has sort of moved up. So as much as I love Barrett, as much as I love Quickly, it was sort of time to sort of put all your chips on the table and say, all right, we got to make some moves. So OG is sort of the first part. I'm waiting for that next part to happen. And whether that happens at the trade deadline this year or at the end of the season during the summertime, I think they're a piece away from truly becoming a contender and a powerhouse in the Eastern Conference. Not that they are already, but I think it'll really establish themselves as one of the real big Eastern Conference powers, which is one more move for this Knicks team.
Yeah, a couple days until Toronto plays the Knicks. You'll get to see your old pals, RJ and IQ versus the Knicks. They should make the move in the next 2 days. Everybody's talking about Malcolm Brogdon or DeJounte Murray or Bruce Brown or, who are you eyeing up? I was just talking to a caller about how I think they're going to make the right move. I've been so impressed with the moves they've made over the last couple years. Whether it was getting Kevin Knox out of here or Cam Reddish out of here, bringing in Josh Hart, bringing in Dante DiVincenzo, like just adding these role players and pieces that fit to the puzzle. And I don't expect them to make a mistake right now and add somebody that doesn't help, even OG, obviously. Who are you eyeing up? Who do you think is going to be the right fit for the Knicks?
Keith, I think you nailed it, right? Like, the most important thing about this is I feel like they're going to nail it regardless. They have built up such a great rapport with me. There's Leon Rose, World Wide West, the regime of Knicks basketball, that it doesn't feel like they ever lose a trade. It doesn't feel like they ever lose a contract negotiation. They got some of the best contracts in the league. Every trade that they've made in the middle of the season, whether it's Derrick Rose or Josh Hart or OG Anunoby, has worked out well. So as much as I'm thirsty for like the Deontay Murrays of the world, the Donovan Mitchells, and those sort of third sort of stars, I think a guy like Terry Rozier, like Scary Terry from Charlotte, like he's sort of the perfect complement for what that bench sort of needs right now. I mean, I just went downstairs to my office to do this call, but as I was upstairs, I seen, I know Josh Hart isn't playing today, but, Evan Fournier is on the court right now, Miles McBride, and you just see the offense just slow down to a snail's pace as soon as those All-Stars are out of the game. You get a guy like Terry Rozier in there who, is toiling away in Charlotte, but you put him in a situation where they're like, hey, you can come to New York and be there, Emmanuel Quickly, their spark plug off the bench, and be a guy who could go off for 20 points any given night, but you're not going to start. But as soon as, you sub in, you're pretty much going to get the ball and say, hey, go get buckets. I think that's going to be a real motivated dude. And I think anybody who's watched him, anybody who's seen just sort of his temperament, I think he kind of fits with this Knicks team and his attitude and this sort of culture that they built of a bunch of tough guys, a bunch of veterans that aren't necessarily, I think the Knicks have figured out this sort of, I'd like to say, formula for a player that they really like and they believe in, where, you think back to when Julius Randle signed to the New York Knicks. He was a guy who I guess was, sort of flying under the radar. He gets to New York. He becomes an All-NBA guy and an All-Star. Jalen Brunson, another guy flying under the radar. He comes to the New York Knicks. He's going to be a first-time All-Star this year and probably an All-NBA player. Even OG Anunoby, in the handful of games we've seen him in the past several weeks, he seems like a guy who might have flown under the radar a little bit, and maybe he could, I called him a homeless man's Kawhi on certain nights. Like he looks like somebody who could be, if he could become a really good shot creator, who knows? He could become one of the top wings in the NBA. So I think wherever they go for that bench help, whether it's Burks, who I like as well, Malcolm Brogdon from Portland, who I think could be a good pickup. But I really like Scary Terry, man. I like Terry Rozier. He's a guy that has a little bit of that oomph that I think New York City would love as well. And I don't think would cost that much to get him over here. And you could still keep that core intact. So that's the guy that I'm really looking for. Jordan Clarkson also, but I think the Utah Jazz are playing a lot better. I think they're the winners of 9 of the last 10 games or something like that. But Terry Rozier, man, if they can get him for a second-round pick in the Fournier contract, count me in, man. Let's roll with that.
Yeah, Scary Terry can run it up. If you're looking for instant offense off the bench, trying to, replace what IQ was doing, it's Scary Terry. I mean, as a Nets fan, I watched him come to Barclays Center with the Hornets and give us buckets. Also, Bruce Brown, former Net, his name was floated out there. I don't know. I think they're going to make the move, especially after we just saw Pascal Siakam get traded. So the Pacers are going for it. I know the Knicks are going to just make the right move. But I mentioned, the Brooklyn Nets. I mentioned Bruce Brown and Terry Rozier giving the Nets work. How do you feel as a New Yorker, as a New York Knicks fan that survived the whole KD Kyrie to Brooklyn with James Harden, and now we have the aftermath where me as a Nets fan, I did the Nets podcast talking Nets today, we're down tremendous, astronomical. We don't know which way is up, which way is down, which way to go next. How does that feel for you surviving that as a Knicks fan? Because we know there was a lot of back and forth, and there was some animosity, some hard feelings that, hey, they didn't choose to come to the Garden.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I've lost a few friends over the years because of this Knicks-Nets rivalry, right? But I'll keep it real. I don't hate the Brooklyn Nets. I don't.
No,
hate
I've seen you in Barclays Center. I've seen you a couple times over there. I know you don't hate the Nets.
It's low over there, right? But at the same time, you can't forget some of the slick stuff that was said about the Knicks franchise during those years, whether it's Spencer Dinwiddie talking a little junk, whether it's KD going to Hot 97 talking a little junk. Of course you're going to have some sort of, all right, we got a bust day behind when we play them. But at the same time, the Brooklyn Nets, they're kind of disappointing. You know what I'm saying? I think at the beginning of the year, this is a team that I thought was at least going to be in that middle of the pack, maybe playing for a playing spot. Because I think they do have a lot of talented players, right? But at the end of the day, I know it's tough to do and say because he's been injured so much, but I think a lot of this team's ills really falls on Ben Simmons. And not so much Ben Simmons, we're still waiting for him to be this number 1 overall pick, or at least a semblance of the guy we saw in Philadelphia for several years. But you got to remember what you gave up for him, right? You gave up a guy like James Harden who – if you could do that over again. And what you gave
up for James Harden, you gave away your core. You gave away Karis LeVert. You gave away Jared Allen. And I'm right there with you. On the podcast and on this radio station, I've been saying that was the mistake that led to all this. And then also planning around Ben Simmons actually playing. You should have never banked on that.
Yeah. I mean, that whole transaction is where I think it sort of set the Nets backwards, right? James Harden, they didn't need him. I felt like they were kind of going for overkill once they saw they had KD, Kyrie, and we're still in this, era of big 3 superstars that you need to win a championship. Whereas, as we've seen in the past several years, you really just need 2 and a really good supporting cast, right? And they had that with KD, Kyrie, and Karis LeVert and Jared Allen and all those guys, You go and get James Harden. He's not happy. You trade him for Ben Simmons, and, God bless Ben Simmons. I hope he gets healthy and is able to play basketball again. But it's been an L. It's set your entire franchise back. And if he was even remotely available on the court, I think you see Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas and all those guys be a lot more productive because we know Ben Simmons isn't the guy who's going to go out there and get you 30, but he'll set the table just as good as anybody in the NBA. You can't do that from the sideline. You can't do that from, while you're injured. So I don't hate the Brooklyn Nets. I just think they probably got a little bit too cute with the transactions, and who knows, maybe that was a little bit of little brother syndrome creeping in, trying to steal headlines from New York and just getting all these superstars and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, man, it doesn't work out. I'm a New York sports fan. I take no solace in seeing or no happiness in seeing the Brooklyn Nets stink right now. I think, whether they're good, whether they're interesting, the NBA is better when the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks are doing well on the basketball front. But I mean, what can I tell you, man? I've never folded. It was very easy to fold. I know a lot of Knicks fans that are friends of mine. I'm not going to say a name, Rob Markman, who jumped
switched sides, said tripping, jumped on the other side for a little while.
Yeah, a lot of people was like, all right, you got to stay over there and bleed blue and orange, but I'll treat you like this. Well, this is what happens when you're loyal. You stay through the bad times, you can appreciate the good times. And right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, the Knicks are going to be in for some good times.
Yes, sir. Stay down till you come up. I say that probably every night, and I know you're a suffering Jets fan. So when I saw your Twitter and I saw you quote tweet Bleacher Report announcing that Mike McCarthy's returning as the Cowboys head coach, and you said Jerry don't got that George in him. You made a Dallas Cowboys-Yankees comparison. I'm like, wait. Woody Johnson don't have that George in him. You're running it back with Rob Saleh. Like, your misery is going to continue. You have the worst coach in the NFL. You're banking on Aaron Rodgers being this magical elixir that he claims to be. So how do you feel about, the Jets' chances going into the offseason, running it back, and Aaron Rodgers at age 40 coming off an Achilles, leading you guys to the promised land?
It's unfortunate, right? Like I'm a Jets fan, obviously, but at the same time, it was the season that I feel was just the most, I would just say, just unfortunate, right? Like in any other circumstance, in any other situation, I think Robert Saleh isn't the head coach of the New York Jets going into this year. But the fact that you got Aaron Rodgers for 4 plays, and you gave up so much to give him that sort of control over the team, whether it was the contract that he took so he could take less money so he can go out and sign more players, like, guys weren't even on the team no more. I think like Alan Lazard, Dalvin Cook, all these other dudes that they signed, after they got Aaron Rodgers. I think there was there had to be some draft protection if he didn't play certain games or whatnot. So at the very least, as bad as the Jets were, I could completely understand them running it back with Robert Saleh just because you don't really have any better choices, right? I think in a perfect scenario, Zach Wilson would have matured a little bit. He would have been at least looked like a capable NFL quarterback. So in the event that Aaron Rodgers came back, they at least had a tough choice to make. Zach Wilson didn't make it a tough choice for them at all, right? And at the same time, the New York Jets organization didn't do a good job of going out and getting the capable backup to at least hold the fort down because the defense, for the most part, held up their end of the bargain, right? Like they did what they could with subpar quarterback play for the 3rd season in a row, and it didn't really help them out, right? So as much as I am not enthusiastic and optimistic that this whole Jets Aaron Rodgers scenario is going to work out, as much as I wanted to, as much as it would absolutely elate me as a long-suffering Jet fan that a 40-year-old man who might be one of the greatest throwers of the football I've ever seen, even though he has some other questionable beliefs, comes back off a torn Achilles and leads the team, and not just the playoffs, into Super Bowl contention. The odds of that happening are astronomical, but do I want it to happen? Absolutely. It's just going to be tough for me to believe that. It also makes me believe that they're just pushing the inevitable back at least one season, right? Like, as much as Aaron Rodgers says he wants to play for another 3-4 years, it behooves the Jets and more accurately behooves Joe Douglas and Woody Johnson and Robert Saleh to have Aaron Rodgers out there balling until he's 45 years old. Eventually, you're going to have to get another guy. Eventually, you're going to have to draft somebody.
Could be setting the franchise back, Kaz. Hey, I know you want to watch the game and the 3rd quarter is about to start. I couldn't have you on without asking you about wrestling, right? The Royal Rumble's coming up. Our guys here, Tommy and Evan, they're going to do a show after the Royal Rumble I was hearing about, talking about wrestling. I'm like, that's unheard of for the fan, but I know you're a big wrestling guy. I know you want to get into wrestling commentary with WWE, so I'm going to give you the last couple minutes here to say what you got to say about your WWE fandom to all the wrestling fans that listen to the fan. I feel like sports fans, wrestling fans are like all the same.
Hey, I'll tell you this, man. If you're somebody who's kind of been in and out of pro wrestling for the past several years, I know who you are, all right? We all know we watched it as kids. We all watched Stone Cold Steve Austin. We all watched The Rock. We all did that. I completely understand. I will not steer you wrong. if there was any other time to get back into pro wrestling, right now is it. You got two big companies in AEW and WWE that are doing great numbers, great attendance. WWE is doing record numbers every single week, and not on top of that, you got some incredible talent at the top of the card that are at the perfect age to carry it into the next sort of generation. And I think that's why there's been so much renewed interest in pro wrestling in the past several years, right? You got a guy like Cody Rhodes, the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, who has been the bleeding heart white meat babyface over the past several years that everybody is hoping could come and finish the story and win the Royal Rumble and run it back against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in Philadelphia. But lurking in the back, you got CM Punk, one of the most popular WWE wrestlers ever, who probably didn't think he'd be back in WWE ever again, lurking in the shadows. You got The Rock, who is suddenly back up in the place and possibly going to go after his cousin Roman Reigns, who was the longest reigning WWE champion of the modern era. There's so many incredible storylines. The women of WWE are just as headline making as the men right now. You got Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley. I mean, it's just an incredible time to be a fan right now, and all you gotta do is look outside and see, right? Like if you're watching the NFL, you're watching the NBA, pro wrestling is everywhere, man. So if you're a fan of it, be proud of it. It's a good time to be a fan, and bring guys like Keith who are on the fence around it to come watch a show, man. Come to Monday Night Raw or SmackDown on one of these days, man. It's a fun time. And the Royal Rumble, the best pro wrestling event to watch with your friends. You could bet on it. You could see who's going to be in there the longest, who's going to be in there the shortest, who's going to win it, who's going to go to main event WrestleMania. And it's 30 people over the top rope. It is so much fun. Keith, do yourself a favor. If you don't watch any show this year, even if you don't watch WrestleMania, watch the Royal Rumble. I promise you, it'll be so much fun.
You sold me. I'm gonna check back in. Kaz, you killed it. First time having you on the Fan. I'm definitely gonna have you back on. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey man, I'm always a pleasure, man. I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing, brother, as always.
Hey, you guys gotta follow Kaz at Kazeem, KAZEEM, Knicks fan, Jets fan, New Yorker, and obviously a big WWE fan.